So the big news obviously today is Will Hardy getting the option year and his contract picked up. Was that kind of a no-brainer with what you've seen from him the first couple of seasons, guiding the team through the rebuilding process?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we
no-brainer.
talked about it, and it was a quick yes from our whole group. So, yeah, that was pretty easy. Yeah, we love Will. We love the direction he is. We love the teammate that he is. And, he's really excited for this year with, the chance to develop these young players. So we're excited. We're excited he's part of us.
Danny, how does Lowry sticking around, his presence, help these young guys, the 7 guys 23 and under?
Yeah, Lowry is a pro's pro. He approaches the game the right way. But as much as anything, he's a fantastic player, and he loves it here. He wants to be here. And through all the discussions this summer, Justin in his home, laid up at home, did a great job in negotiating a contract to get him back here. And we're excited. We couldn't be more excited to have Lowry back and part of our future, not just this year, but moving on. He's a big part of what we're doing.
Danny, obviously the big quote from the end of season press conference was big game hunting, and maybe that was blown up a little bit, but tell me how that kind of
I was going to wear my elk shirt.
Tell me how that evolved, I guess, from, you're going April, May, June through the draft and then into free agency. How, close did you get? What was the market like out there? And then how did you ultimately decide to pivot to where the team is now?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to let Justin answer the big game hunting. All right.
No problem.
Yeah.
First of all, Andy, the quote wasn't big game hunting if you actually read the entire thing, which I know you did. And you guys, especially our great beat writers, have been in the league a long time. You guys have seen how things evolve in an off season, whether it's this one, the future ones. You can just take a look at what transactions actually transpired in the rest of the league. I think with this organization that we are extremely aggressive with pursuing any and all means necessary to make this a championship caliber roster. When those opportunities come up, we're ready for them. There weren't any. And so to sit there and not do anything, we've decided our plan was to completely throw our focus into our young guys and the best player on our roster in Lowry Markkanen. Lowry helps our young players develop. He's a developing leader. He's a guy that you can't have just a bunch of young guys trying to raise themselves. I think you've heard the quote, pups can't raise pups. So when that became apparent that we couldn't find the right pairings to add to Lowry, which we were going to do no matter what, we have to pivot the other way and develop our young guys. And that's a reflection of the market, not a reflection of what do we want to do or we're not sure. We've always had a plan, no matter what anybody said, is to develop this roster into a championship caliber one. And this is the best way to do it.
Piggybacking off of that, how much of a step forward do you want those 3 young guys from last year, not this draft, but the last year's draft, Taylor, Keontae, Bryce, how much more of a part of the rotation and then just the development of this whole organization are they going to be this year?
So last year, if you remember, those guys weren't ready to go. Only Keontae was ready. Keontae had a fantastic summer. Bryce and Taylor were injured throughout the summer, throughout summer league, and even through this time of year leading up to training camp. So, that was a little bit unique. They were going to start in the G League. Probably we knew that before training camp started just because they were so far behind. This year, going into this year, I'm not sure we have that figured out yet as to who is going to be on the Jazz and who's going to play some games in the G League. I assume that most of them will play some, but Bryce and Taylor took big steps this summer, but also late last year after their time spent in the G League. I thought they developed pretty well, and they're even better right now.
I would just say, too, just the overall theme, we are so excited about this season with our young guys. The level of work that, the question that you asked with our second-year players, they've been here all summer. You guys will see marked changes in their bodies, their games. What does that mean in terms of expected production? The expectation is we want them to get better day by day. And that they're setting an example for our young rookies that are coming in here, and really their energy and ability to, merge and play with our group. It's going to be an exciting year to watch these guys grow. And I think that applies up and down to the roster.
Danny, Z, can you both maybe comment on Walker in his third year coming up? Maybe a little sophomoric slump last year, injury, obviously, but year 3 is always important in this league. At least, former players will tell you that. Where is he mentally, physically, and in the game planning of what you need him to do?
Yeah, I think Walker's in a great place. He's had a great summer. He's been completely healthy. Another guy that when you guys see him, marked changes in his body. I think whether you want to call it a sophomore slump, I think it's just an opportunity to grow. Things came maybe a little easy for him his rookie year, just with the veterans that we had to play and playing a certain role, and people maybe not having a lot of expectations, and he played extremely well. And then, your second year, people know who you are and what you do and what you can and can't do, and part of that is through figuring out what I need to work on. And he's attacked this summer the best I've ever seen. Obviously, when we traded for him his rookie year, he wasn't able to spend much time with us because he was hurt. And then obviously had his great rookie year, and last year with the Olympic team, not getting to play much, but that new experience. This is really the first summer that we've had him in our program, and he's attacked everything. So he's in a great mental and physical space, and he's a huge part of what we're doing. I mean, he's our defensive presence and anchor at the rim, and continuing to be more consistent. I think you'll see big things from Walker this year.
When he did play last year, I agree that he didn't have as good a year as some people hoped, but when he played, we were better defensively.
I know the operative word is the youth movement, but you've got some veterans who bought in as well. Talk about them and maybe the roles that they potentially will play in helping this team mature.
As you guys get to know some of our new guys that have been in the league for a while, they're all outstanding people. They all can play. The reason we brought them here is to help and teach our young guys how to be a professional in the league, how to work, what it means to play in the NBA, and what you have to do to, 1, survive, 2, grow, and 3, stay. So obviously we still have training camp to go through. Everybody's in shape. Everyone's been here for at least a couple weeks, getting to know each other. Obviously most of the team for a lot longer than the last couple weeks. So we'll see how all those roles and things play out. But, every acquisition that we made in free agency that were veterans were very strategic in terms of their profiles as a person, what they can do in the community, how they've embraced being here in Utah. I think you're going to enjoy them very much, and I think they're huge assets for us to really help us invest in our young guys.
Yeah, and I would just say the other veterans that we have on the team, we talked about Lowry, but Colin and Jordan and John Collins, like those guys are good players. And so, we make it sound like they're just going to be coaching our young guys, but no, they're going to go out and play and show everybody how to play. And it's always good for a coach to have those veterans they can lean on to show the young guys how to play and teach them, because our young guys have a lot to learn. We talk about development a lot. Development is big, but the biggest thing in development is learning. And if you don't have people that can show the example on the court during games and in practice every day, then it's hard to learn. It makes it more difficult.
Ryan, this has been slightly busy of an off season for you. How are you going to divide your attention and time between hockey and the Jazz?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that piece. I think our organization is has been incredible. First of all, I mean, from Jim to Chris Armstrong, and digesting something that probably wasn't possible in 5 months has been nothing but incredible. Not only that, if you look at the arena changes and locker rooms and practice facilities, I mean, they've truly done what no one thought could be done. And, you know, it's been about 5 months since we got the word that that was happening. And in 10 days, we're going to open up. I just love that it's one organization. We're about one Utah. I'm fortunate enough to be at a phase of my life and career where we can be pretty mission driven here, and the mission is Utah. And if everyone can't see that, I must not be doing a good enough job. But we've got the same organization, and you know, from Delta Airlines flying the hockey team to, you know, our medical staff and everyone helping and really being truly one family. So I don't really look at it, it's like it's two separate worlds. You know, I'm a hoops guy. Everyone knows that. Like it's what if you drop me off in the building, it's where I'm going to go always. But I think we're all loving the hockey vibe, even here, and the amount that we're learning from that sport, from teams and how they operate and the differences, and that they're learning from this side. I think it's all additive, and so I'm not going to prescribe that the Smiths are going to have to be at every single game on both sides or any of that. Like, we're just going to go and see how it goes and adjust if we need to.
That's a political answer.
What do you want me to say?
I mean, he doesn't know anything about hockey.
I actually,
Yeah.
no, I know a little bit.
Danny and Justin, apologies. This is probably going to be kind of a long-winded question.
I'll listen carefully then.
Thank you. As you're looking at the young guys, the 3 guys you got last year, the 3 guys you have coming in this year, potentially more in the coming years, how is it that you decide when they are not going to be a part of the future, maybe? Because, and like within that is kind of the analyzing thought of a lot of guys don't hit their primes until like 26-ish, you know, but you kind of have to make a decision before that. You can't just sit on 12 guys waiting for 8 years, right, to figure out if they're good or not. So where in that is there a decision made?
I'll start. Part of it, Sarah, and this will be maybe a long-winded answer to your long-winded question. So, look, from the day we get these guys, when they show up, we start to have data points on them, and I'm not talking necessarily about the box score, how they work, where their level, where's their baseline, because in today's draft, almost nobody is actually ready to play in the NBA. So there's a extended timeline of that. But every day that we see these guys, we get a data point. The other part is contractually, the way our rookie contracts are set up, there's natural decision points for it, but also an ability to control them for 7 or 8, 9 years if we want. So that's going to naturally evolve, and it's going to be different from each guy. So those decisions are going to come up, and I think we've done, at least so far, a decent job of spacing these out. Some of them will be self-determinate in terms of their play, and you know, are they going to make it or not? And then there's going to be some in the middle, like you just described, that, hey, this guy's developing, but it might be a little slower. It might take a little while. What kind of bets do we want to make on that? Along with, you know, obviously the building of the rest of the roster. So ideally, you know, you hit on, we're probably not going 6 of 6, okay? But can we develop core pieces of this team, and then with all of our other assets add, or maybe something else develops, or some free agent or other things? It's going to be a path. So that's part of just like part of the entire plan, is why we're investing in all of our young guys right now, to give them the best opportunity to grow, to develop, so we can make some decisions. But those decisions don't have to come after the first year, the second year, the third year. We have plenty of time that way. We just have to put in the work.
Ryan, a few questions on the stadium district. one, how are you feeling about the upcoming vote from the city council? Two, how different or how similar is it to kind of what you envisioned when we first kind of talked about it in, I guess, January through April? And then from your point of view, you're a tech guy, you're not like a city building planning guy. Like, how has that process unfolded similarly or differently than what you expected?
Yeah, I'll hit on it a little bit. I think Natalie Gochner, our chief economist for the state, has said some stuff that's really resonated with me, that every generation needs to carry the baton when it comes to city building, or you really get behind. And I truly believe that. If you actually look around, I think it's our generation's turn to carry that. I also think that we're at a super unique spot right now. I mean, this afternoon we're meeting with the IOC who's here. And we don't get a chance in a lot of business, like in tech, you don't get a chance to look 30 years out. You just don't. Like, if you get more than a year, like, the whole thing is going to change. I mean, you wouldn't have missed AI. The iPhone's 15 years old. Like, you know, it doesn't really work. And to be able to sit here where we're making a big commitment as well to basically signing up for the next 30 years in a spot for 2 professional sports teams, that's it's a big thing, and we're looking and we're working with all the parties involved. Where it's you know, the county who just came out and said Abravanel is going to be there, and Mayor Wilson, and then the city, and then the state. And what I love about Utah is whether you're Democrat, Republican, religious, or university, we're in a state where people still work together, and I think it's been absolutely phenomenal to go and I know for SCG and our standpoint. We're all in on downtown, and that's not a trend in sports that's happening everywhere. The trend is actually to leave, because net new with these anchor tenants, it's almost like you can't fail in a new district somewhere when you pop down a stadium and all of this. And so, but to do that, if you look at the participation agreement and everything that's coming through, there's also a massive commitment on things that we together want to go accomplish, whether it's jobs, whether it's internships. It's incredibly mission driven, but also something that everyone in Utah can be super proud of. We've got a chance to, you know, take the convention center into the future, because conventions have completely changed post-COVID. We've got a chance to really activate the arts. We've got a chance to make the city flow better east to west. Where every single person that comes to Salt Lake says, hey, that's kind of where we go. We've got a chance to anchor the Olympics, where you could picture a medals plaza for the next 30 years, where kids go and they can stand up and see, hey, this is where you get gold. Well, you know, let's take a picture here. But we also have a chance to attract events and continue to have events that haven't been here. And so I think if you look at, I don't think Utah's really, or most people have been able to really grasp until you see it. We kind of saw it a little bit with a preseason hockey game. We've got 11 nights in February where we're back to back every other night, hockey and basketball. And, you know, our team learning how to go through that. I'm sure there's going to be a point in time where we're changing out multiple events in a day, where we're doing hockey in the afternoon and basketball at night, or vice versa. That's a challenge. Yeah. But that's all part of it. And I think for Ash and I and our group, it feels incredibly fulfilling to be one part of it, because it's not the arena. I think the arena is actually probably the easiest part. This is big though. It's not easy. It's not the easiest thing. Like, we are going to go all in, and I think we've also got a track record of bringing things and people to the table who historically haven't been betting on Utah. And you know, I watched Delta's announcement this morning with going to Seoul, Korea. That is massive. You know, the small markets don't fly direct to Seoul and Paris and Amsterdam and everything else. And it's my point the whole time since we took over from the very first NBA phone call. Like, this isn't a small market. And if you look around, the makeup of what we have doesn't really tie to that, from a tech standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from a growth standpoint. And I think it only helps every single thing that we are trying to do. And so I'm proud of Utah. I think it's gone about as I thought. If you would have told me that we would be doing all of this 8 months ago, 10 months ago, I probably wouldn't have believed it all the way. But I think we've got a good chance to do something special and really carry the baton for our generation and invest. And I'm grateful for those who did it before. I mean, I drive up here every day, and I remember when they took half the state down to make those freeways wider and do a bunch of stuff like that. And we've been able to handle the growth that's come to Utah in stride. And that's a big deal, because you look at Austin, you look at some of these other cities, it's people have come in, the infrastructure hasn't been there. So we're really infrastructure building.
Ryan, just going off of that, you talk about the mission being Utah, and this team has really embraced Utah, not just being here in the facility, but also taking time to visit the state and go around the state. What does that mean to you, and how do you see this current group fitting into the culture that you and Ashley are trying to really put out there?
Well, it is culture. I mean, and that word's overused, but like I view a team in us and Will, that's our team, and then it extends to everything else. But I don't think that we're having to sell a whole lot. I'll be honest with you. I think Lowry, he's an incredible basketball player, but I think people are making way too big of a deal that he wants to be in Utah. I mean, I've seen players get traded here in tears recently, and people like Utah and they like where we're going. I think the narrative's got to be more that there's a much bigger sell that we've got to put on. Like, I'm fortunate enough to own houses in other states. I choose to live here. Like, it's awesome here. And I think that's the way it is. And I think most people who are sitting in that gym right now, they've been here all summer working out and working hard. Everyone's seen that. It's because they want to be.
I hear Danny and Justin talk about developing the 6 or 7 young guys. There's never been a governor that's like opening press conference to owning a team. I can't wait to develop. That's always about championship and, confetti coming from the sky. So from a governor's standpoint, what is your excitement level for the season in this process?
I think you have to look back at also Utah, like all of the people that it's learning first, but there's, you look at John, you look at Carl, you go through what we've grown our own talent. I mean, most teams have, if you look around the league. There's some that have been able to recruit and kind of change that trajectory. But if I look around the league, those players that 90% plus have been homegrown. And that's the business we're in. And so we better get really good at it. And we also want as many shots as we can at it. And there's no one I'd rather have drafting than Danny. And there's no one I'd rather have working on how to improve the roster right now than Justin. And no one I'd rather have coaching than Will. And so it's tough not to be excited about that. Watching Keontae, seeing what Will's been able to do with Lowry since he's come in. I mean, I was with Lowry this week and talking for a long time about like, what was it? Was it that you were unlocked, or how was it coaches using you? And like, it's been a huge blessing for him to kind of be in, and that's part of development too that no one talks about, is how we've developed Lowry, how Lowry's developed here in Utah. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a competitive human. I think that going through and seeing how we've started and kind of the decisions we've made are probably counterintuitive a little bit to how I'd want to start my tenure. But actually, I love it. I love working with these guys, and I'm totally bought in. And if we want to win a championship, we're going to have to do it our way. And I think we will. I'm 100% confident of that. But times are also changed. I mean, we just signed a hockey player to 8 years, and those contracts aren't here. So those decision points that Justin's talking about are happening a lot more frequently and on a lot more movement. And so I'm super bullish, and I think it's exciting, and I think we're gonna have a fun year.
Ryan, can you expand on this idea of small market versus mid-sized market, large market? A lot of the times that is tied to the media market size, and how has SCG Media, SCG Plus, the streaming, all of that played into either the perceived or
the actual growth of this market and how it's seen outside of Utah?
Yeah, how it's seen outside of Utah is different than, I mean, that's a whole nother branding component of our state and how we talk about ourselves and how we carry ourselves and what we highlight. But from a media market standpoint, I mean, when I took over, we were showing games to 1.2 million people. Last year, it got up to 6 million people, and it was almost like you had a smorgasbord of ways to watch the game. You know, we don't want an excuse that you can't see where to find the game. We actually want plan A, B, and C if something's wrong inside your house, right? Or on your car or on the road. That's the whole vision for it. And we're going to continue to double down on that. From a media markets, I don't know that those stats are really relevant anymore. I mean, just to be honest, we're still using the stats that we did from 2010, 2008, 95, the way we define markets, and everything has absolutely changed. Social media, streaming, the way people consume, the way people watch, the device they're watching on. So our job's to be at the forefront and lead out. Now with AI and everything else, we're looking at different ways to go and hit people. And we just want to cast the biggest net as possible for the most people to watch Jazz games. And I think the team's done a fabulous job at doing that. And I think there's also power with multiple brands on one single platform. You've seen this with MSG, with how many groups they carry, whether it's the Yankees and everything else. There's massive power in that, which is only going to make the Jazz brand go bigger.
Getting back to the team, Justin, for the not as big game that you did acquire with whether it's Drew Eubanks or Patty Mills or Svi, what do they add to this team? I mean, they obviously bring experience and some leadership. What are you expecting out of those guys?
You know, going one by one, I think with Drew, he adds a level of physicality that's going to be really good for our young bigs. Plays hard, great dude, very good communicator. I think that can really help Walker and Taylor and even some of the younger vets with Lowry and John. I mean, I think it kind of can be a glue part of that big man group. With Patty's career, when you study it, has been an unbelievable career. From a late second round pick who decided to get himself in the greatest shape he's ever gotten in his entire life in San Antonio. To turning that into about a 15-year career. The way he works, his work ethic, his routine, how he takes care of his body, it's a huge example not only for our young guards like Keontae, but also all of our young guys. Like it's not the only example on our team, but this is a perfect example of what a pro in the NBA looks like, both in how you carry yourself, what you do off the court, how you handle your business. He has made his career, let alone all the Olympics and all the other accolades. Is probably the most famous basketball player in Australia. But just his personality, when you meet him, he instantly has people gravitate to him. And I think Svi is, you know, he's one of those, I guess he's been in the league for a little bit, but he's still 25, 26, 27. Like he's kind of bounced around a little bit, but he's got real athletic skills, ability to shoot. I think there could be some upside there as far as what we could get out of him. But another guy who's constantly worked and continued to train and has been a good addition to the wing group.
Danny, I'm wondering, in all of your years around the league, when looking at Will and kind of his ability or what you've seen in his ability to help develop the young players, what's stood out, what's unique, or maybe even not unique, but conventional in a way that you like it with him and his staff, with those young players?
Well, I think that his greatest, what separates him, I mean, he knows the game very well, and he's been a development coach forever, but is just his communication. He does a great job of communicating with the players, building relationships, one-on-one talks. He's always trying to learn. We talk about learning a lot in our development, like I mentioned earlier, but Will loves to learn. And so he's had some great mentors that he's worked with in the past, and he's watching what other teams are doing. But the communication is what separates him.
He's also super smart. I mean, the Williams College grad. I think it's not by accident he's here.
You guys have had your media availabilities with him. You know his humor, and it's one of the funniest dudes I've ever met, by the way. Outside of Danny.
Similar but related, I guess. You guys actually kind of have a deepish roster in that you have, I think, kind of positional battles, right? And are you going to play Patty Mills or Isaiah Collier? Are you going to play Jordan Clarkson or Bryce Sensabaugh? Are you going to start Walker Kessler or John Collins, right? Do you want this year to be more about developing those young guys and giving priority minutes to those young guys? Or do you want this year to be more about trying to win every game?
So in some ways you're referencing the no free minutes sort of thing with Will. And I think one thing that's important to note this year is in the previous couple years, we've had a big disparity of our young incoming players and rookies not being quite ready. For example, Bryce and Taylor, not, being injured in the summer, needing to, a little bit more slower impact. We've had more veterans in the past, 2 years ago. I think what's different this year is that we're starting to build a really good depth base. They just happen to be really young. So instead of having 3 guys that are rookies, we have 7 guys now under the age of 23. I think there's going to be opportunities where it's going to look different. Now, we still have training camp. I can't sit here and tell you who's going to play, who's not going to play. But our growth is going to come from our developing our talent base so that we can win more games now and in the future. That doesn't happen overnight. So, but what's important about development is playing. So you also know that in an 82-game season, Andy, lots of stuff can change. There's injuries, there's stuff, and I'm actually happy that we have a deep roster, but I think there's going to be multiple opportunities for more young guys to play this year because we simply have more young guys as part of our rotation. So it's going to look different, and I think it could look different from game to game, depending on matchups and what's going on. So it's a little bit as I've told you, I'm super excited about this season, but it's also another wrinkle of why you're excited. You're going to see different players in different roles at different times, and how they respond. It's not going to be some hot take of whether a guy can play or not play. It's all of these data points that we're talking about of, okay, where do they need to get better? Where do they need to focus? How did they learn that lesson? Like, I'll give you an example last year when Taylor Hendricks was playing at the end of the year. Will had him literally guarding the best perimeter player. Like, I think he went on a 3-game stretch from guarding Kevin Durant to like Jimmy Butler to Devin Booker or whatever. That was huge for his growth going into the summer. I think those lessons that we're able to impart and play while we're still having internal competition where we're going to have multiple guys playing is huge for the entire group. And I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Jay-Z and Danny, you guys have seen how many players here have been in the off season just here working out at the Jazz facilities, and you've seen players also at football games and hanging out off the court. How important is that to the foundation you guys are trying to build with Jazz basketball, and how does that translate onto the court for what you guys want with this franchise?
So there's multiple things. I think the first thing, again, referencing how young our group is, and Ryan's talked about this, about players that come here to Utah, that they love Utah. Our guys, like, they're in the community and they're getting to experience great things, not only just great football teams, but Will had his golf tournament last week and every player showed up. Half of them had never played golf before. I think 50% of them went out and bought clubs, or John Collins played his first 4-hour round ever.
6 hours.
6 hours. Yeah, it was slow. We got guys that are learning how to hike. They've never been around mountains, and they go up and see the beauty of it, and the weather is unbelievable. Like, those experiences are great. And then the fact that they're doing it together just adds bonds, along with them all being in the gym together. They're learning how to play with each other, even if it's just communicating or playing pickup or lifting weights together. There aren't a lot of generational gaps here outside of Patty maybe, but the rest of this core is really, really young. So they're going to have a lot of the same interests, a lot of the same challenges in their youth or their life or whatever's going on. So there's some instant bonding that goes on. But I love that these guys and their character, they love being out in the community and experiencing what this state has to offer.
I've been around a lot of players that you have mandatory appearances in the NBA, and sometimes it's a struggle to get people out. These are just, we're talking about voluntary. They're just like, they're invited and they show up. And they do that throughout the community. It's the easiest group of guys to, to get together and get outside and enjoy the outdoors and learn everything about what's going on in the state. And plus, a lot of them are very young, and so they love the college atmosphere as well.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.